Hi there. I'm Chris von Lindenberg. I'm excited to be with you today and just truly filled with gratitude. I'm here to share with you a simple yet helpful concept, a tool which can make a difference in personal finances for most every household that I know, my own included. Start with a quick segue here. Inflation is up, holidays are here. We're at the tail end of October, jumping into November. And, inflation and holidays, they absolutely have an impact on personal finances. And it's something that we talked about as a team that we wanted to touch on as we're here in the fall. As somebody who enjoys behavioral finance, I thought I would help us start with a quick mindset shift. What I'm looking to do is help reshape in our minds the way that we approach how to allocate our income. There's an old word called budget. We all know what it means. It's not something that, as a term, really gives us a positive frame of mind, right? Unfortunately, it feels forced. It feels restrictive. Instead, I want us to think of a spending plan, something that feels more planned, more strategic, more tactful, more intentional than the budget, right? A spending plan. So part of my focus today is to introduce to you one of the conceptual tools that we developed as a firm. It's a template that can help you capture and analyze some data. If you'd like your own free copy of it, just let us know. Send us a message. Ask for the Income Prioritizer tool, and we'll make sure you get a copy. Completely free, just complimentary for you. The tool allows you to approach your spending plan from, if you will, a bit of a clean slate. It can be the ideal budget that you would like to create, or you could utilize it to focus on actual costs. And there is a difference. The ideal is what you want your budget to look like, and actual is really where you've been spending your money and how you've been handling your finances. You see, creating a spending plan for your household can be a simple 10-minute quick exercise, something that's off the cuff, or you might choose to actually invest several hours. I'd say the best approach, right, from a scientific standpoint for accuracy would be to actually measure backwards and look through your true historical expenses. But that can take a lot of time for folks. It is a worthwhile exercise, I assure you, but that's not necessarily where you want to begin if you're limited on time. Most importantly, it doesn't have to be exact in order for this exercise to be effective, unless that's just how you're wired and that's what makes you happy. For me, my own OCD, I'm somewhere in between. I'd also urge you that if your household means that you and a partner, spouse, what have you, significant other, if you manage finances collectively, and I would urge you to think of it as a joint approach. So what I would propose is that you approach this as each of you, if you're handling separate elements of the household finances, some of them can overlap, but if you're handling separate elements, each of you take a run at it preliminarily, and then you come together, discuss, and combine the data. I would urge you, as a simple reminder, don't overlook, don't miss out on annual or seasonal items. Some of those things that maybe one time a year or twice a year expenditures, really, maybe they need to be annualized and broken into a 12-month payment for purposes of your spending plan. You're going to want to also take time to reflect. That is, when you've gotten the data and you've combined the information from you and your partner, or you've got it for your household, reflect on it. I urge you to pick a few things out that you're pleased with, right? But also identify any areas that you might like to improve upon. Are there any other observations or challenges that you might spot? So I'll give you some reflection real quick as a CFP. When I sit down with folks professionally, my goal is not to pick apart their budget. My goal is not to challenge people with how they choose to spend their dollars, right? It is what it is. But here are some general reflections that we see. First and foremost, it's almost always an eye-opener for one, if not both spouses or partners. The feelings, the emotion can oftentimes feel amplified for one of those partners, that if they're not the one that is if they're not the primary in running household finances, the feelings of emotion can be oftentimes amplified. It's like, wow, really? Some categories also on the tool that we use can have different meanings and interpretations for individuals. And that varies, and that's perfectly fine. Main thing is, as we're going through, we just want to make sure we're not double counting or missing out on anything. So it doesn't really matter where on the spending plan, the income prioritizer, where you put, medical for kids, if it's already on the pay stub, you don't count it twice. But just keep that in mind that there is some interpretation involved, but it's your spending plan, not ours. Professionally, it's usually not a single area that jumps out at us, right? So it's not like finding this big gaping hole in the middle of the dam, but rather when we look at our spending plan, we look at historical outflows, what we sometimes see is it's more like figuratively speaking, a bunch of little cracks here and there that have some seepage that could be tightened up, right? It's not usually one big obvious element unless it's just such a big line item. Like one example could be very large vehicle payments, right? We're at a time where some of these family trucksters cost a good, pretty penny, and interest rates are high. And my goodness, if there's some reason that your family's got to carry more than one car note, it can be a pretty big line item. So maybe that is a bit like a hole in the dam, but it's not forever. It's a note is something that's getting repaid over time. It's a fixed loan. Another professional insight is that many of our expenses in our plan, they could be maybe reflected upon and identified as wants, and not necessarily all of them being needs. A reminder for us, if you will, that spending, how we choose to spend, is often a choice. It's a cognitive decision that we're making. And so not everything is needs-based in most household budgets. Many households, I'll also share, they do save for retirement. They do save for some of their goals. Oftentimes it's through employer plans when we may initially engage them, but sometimes we see folks they save and invest, if you will. They tend to save and invest what's left over. And usually that has a lot of households under preparing for future financial independence, by example there. I'll also lastly state professionally that every household is unique in how they approach, how they manage, and how they communicate about finances. Somebody who's got some training as an intermediary, somebody within our profession can help facilitate a conversation. We can help you align objectives. That is, each party may have specific objectives, and we can align that into teamwork that's a bit more productive. I like to think of it as we're with our partners in a canoe. And if we're not communicating as to where we're heading, if we don't have a plan, there's a chance that we'll be paddling at different times. There's a chance that our paddles could be putting us in circles because they're on the same side of the canoe. So sometimes it's helpful to have a third party facilitate a conversation. So in the spirit of how important this is, in the spirit of putting myself on the line here, Team von Lindenberg, that is Alyssa and I, we sat down, and I'll be a little vulnerable here. We sat down and did our own income prioritizer. And I start with a simple reflection with gratitude. When we look at the data, when we look at the information we've put down in our spending plan, our reflections, we really need to make sure that we're being constructive with them and not destructive. If we're communicating with a partner who maybe doesn't always see or look at and analyze the big picture, it can seem overwhelming. And in my own household, here I am, the financial planner, and Alyssa's in marketing. And, she's got a lot of trust and confidence that I'm doing things the right way for our household. But, it's really important that our time together and when we're discussing this be constructive and not destructive. And I think that that's true for every household, every partnership. So I'll share with you to, sort of pat ourselves on the back, right? A little constructive feedback. What I found and what we reflected upon together that we're doing well is that when we sat down, we looked at our income prioritizer, and we actually looked at and discussed actual expenses and went through it. It took some time, but we got confirmation that we're being very prudent with our resources. We're living still well within our means, which is great. A lot of families, as they run small businesses, they find success in their careers. There's promotional opportunities. Income creep is also lifestyle creep. And, certainly that's evolved for us as well, but we're still very confident that our budget, if you will, our spending plan puts us well within our means. We feel secure in having choices and not having to worry about providing for our children's basic human needs. I think in that regard, as humans, when we look about, think of the world, we're truly blessed. And I'm sure you are as well. Alyssa and I recognized that we committed many years ago to paying ourselves first with regard to saving adequately for strategic family goals, right? Whether it's retirement, education, future investments that we intend to make for the business. We realized that we put that plan in motion years ago and we stuck to our guns. We've adjusted it and increased it over time as we could. But I'll also say this, the review of certain line items also served as confirmation to us that we've got a good foundation of financial security. There are certain elements of our plan that are line items in our budget to make sure that if an unforeseen incident should occur, that we're taken care of. And I think when we look at that, we've got a good foundation in place as a household. And I believe most all of our client relationships should feel that way as well. But I'll tell you, the biggest insights come from looking at areas where we can think about improving. And again, I'm grateful to reflect on this way. Tell you, first and foremost, we can improve upon as a couple is that we don't give each other enough credit and we don't give each other enough positive encouragement for just how well we collectively manage our resources, especially with how little we talk about it. True story. Secondly, I realize we should go through this exercise more frequently. We both agreed. Maybe we need to do one deep dive per year to ferret out if there are unnecessary expenditures in the budget. Alyssa made a really good point, and she said, um, not all of these expenses, when she looked back, not all these expenses are monthly, and therefore it would help to track it over a longer period of time, such as a full year. Now, of course, my head wants to explode thinking like, I love data, but I don't know if I want to do it for a full year. So I'd say once a year deep dive and maybe a quarterly review, or if you want a monthly review, go in and just check yourself against, hey, am I staying on track here? So next item is that we need to increase our communication as spouses with regard to money conversations. And again, that kind of goes back to seasonal cash flow demands, right? A solution for us, and I hadn't thought about this before, maybe this is a tool that we'll create, but a solution could be an annual money calendar. That is to say, for purposes of big ticket items that come at certain times of the year, whether it's holiday outlays. My goodness, were we disconnected in what our expectations were for the upcoming Christmas season for our family? But we talked about it, we thought about it, and yeah, we could see each person's perspective, and it is what it is. But sports, holidays, vacations, big ticket items. We've got certain bills just come once a year, and it would be prudent for us to have a ongoing conversation more frequently. Additionally, because we have a unique way of dividing our own finances within our household, we might consider incorporating an additional savings account for some of those seasonal outflows. So kind of those two things kind of go together there. And lastly, a good observation, felt really good about this, is that we both agree that there is a way we can strategically increase some of how we are saving, and more importantly, how that is being invested. Because from time to time, there has been, an opportunity to put a few extra dollars into the kids' education accounts and this and that. But I really feel that strategically, we can take another step in our own financial development and increase some of those savings. But also, we can spend some time focusing on one of the next elements we'll get into, and that is getting aligned with our dreams and our vision. More importantly, like, where are we heading big picture, long term, and figure out how does that impact the way we're currently saving today? How does that tie into our values, who we are as individuals and as a family? I'm really excited for that. So thank you for joining me today. If you'd like a copy of the Income Prioritizer tool, I'd love for you to have it. I'd love to even get some of your feedback if you take the time to go through it. It's something that many of our relationships do at the time that we construct their financial plan, but it's not something that most everyone goes back to voluntarily, but it's something that's good. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate you. If you need me, you know how to reach us. You take care.